Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome to today's Rise Together Conversation. Today, I have a very, very, very special guest with me.
Yay.
My dear friend Candice, who I met in 2010 when I was volunteering at a yoga wellness center, Kripalu. Oh my goodness, I'm so delighted and honored to have her here with us today.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
Yes. So I want to just start by sharing a little bit about Candice and her work, and then I'll let her introduce herself as well. So Candice is a licensed clinical social worker and certified in Akashic Records. She has 12 years of experience utilizing Buddhist psychology, transpersonal theory, and humanistic therapy, including direct clinical service at 3 addiction treatment centers in Florida, teaching spirituality and connection. Candice focuses on healing, not from an individual framework, but from an awareness of ancestral karma. And so
Yes.
today we're going to dive into that a little bit about the karma, but we're also going to be talking about this conversation around unity consciousness and where we are all being called in 2020 and the upcoming year. So I'm super, super delighted to be here and have this conversation with you.
Thank you. I'm so blessed to be able to hold space with you, and your energy is really powerful, and it gives me the opportunity to really step into this space and to bring forward not only information that we might have spontaneously channeled in this session, but some really powerful themes that have been coming up in my work. Channeling the Akashic Record, for those who don't know, is a powerful stream of consciousness in the 12th dimension, like that, always recording information about our soul's journey.
Can you repeat that last part a little bit because you had got fuzzy?
Sure. So the Akashic Record is a 12th dimensional consciousness, and it is a recording system, much like a library. And any moment at any given time, in fact, in this moment, the Akasha is recording what is.
Mm.
And we have the power to access that information through channel to perceive from a larger perspective what is, not only in our individual karmic relationships, but our and planetary alignments. We can actually access information. For example, what is a pattern or a trajectory that we're being called to look at? Intentionality.
It's so interesting. So a few points got um, fuzzy again. I'm not exactly sure what it is.
Oh,
Um,
I sometimes the energy is
yeah, I think it's just
around.
the energy.
I can hear you great, but you can hear a blip, yeah?
Well, it's just certain words or just they go kind of out and then you come back.
Okay.
So I guess we'll just trust the flow, and
Okay.
if we need to, we can always, try something different and
Sure.
re-record.
And I
But
can also move the earbuds if you need me to.
okay. Well, whenever I was just sort of preparing for this conversation with you, I could feel the codes and I could feel the activations and like this such an expansive energy that is available through not only the records, but through these activations that you are sort of being this bridge, to help people open to those places within themselves. And it also feels like uh, sort of like being this catalyst for people to find more of this openness or this connectedness and this unity to
Yeah.
energy. And
Yeah. So, and something that I think is really powerful to say, and I hope it goes viral, which is that like God is in everyone. I see God in everyone and in everything. And I
Mm.
feel so emotional and so open-hearted to say that and feel that And that energy is arriving onto this planet through unity consciousness, through the fifth dimensional shifting, which we can talk, and I'm sure we'll talk more about. But the ability to see God in people is a beautiful example of what unity consciousness really is.
Mm.
And I think my practice in the Akasha and seeing God in people through the Akasha has really allowed me to hold sacred space for them. And I believe this is something we can all do, whether
Mm.
we're reading the Akasha or not. And that's what I'm so sort of passionate in talking about.
I really, really love that. And, we talked a little bit about my current situation and upheaval before we started recording. But, I think sometimes it's really easy to see God in people that are showing up with open hearts and like in the love and light, right? And they're in flow and they're like, they're open to you or they're giving to you. Like it's really easy to see and receive God in those moments. And then yet I think for a lot of us in 2019, and even from what I'm experiencing, and I do feel other people may be experiencing this too, like the beginning of 2020, like we're being given these opportunities sort of to use whatever we've learned in 2019 or the past couple of years
Mhm.
to almost expand our capacity to receive God and to sync up with this greater divine consciousness that is wanting to run through each of us. And, my experience of that is like, seeing God even in the destruction and even in the people that are being unconscious vessels, right?
Yes. Yes. I couldn't agree with that more. And, the ability to understand the collective impact, I believe, is part of the trusting process. Collective impact has to do with the fifth dimensional shifting. And to speak a little bit, if it, probably a good time to speak a little bit about what that really means is, we are entering a phase with a like cosmology around the Aquarian age, which is like a time in our history. Every 2,000 years, we shift to a different age. And it takes about 50 years to anchor into that new age. And the year 2000, right? So 20, 25 years on one side of the year 2000 and 20 to 25 years on the other would have been almost a full Aquarian age, which is a powerful age, cosmology speaking, of awakening to interconnectedness, awakening to fearlessness, awakening
Mm,
to love. And as that energy is being born, it's pushing forward the splinter of the shadow into the light, which
mm,
we see playing out in individuals and collectively. And I think my personal attachment of sadness is around wishing deeply that we wouldn't need sadness and tragedy to call forward humanoid on this planet. That's how we do things at this
mhm,
current reality. But the showing up with consciousness that maybe is shadowed or asleep or so there, I love this phrase. They shared it before, and I'm going to share it with you, and we can share it with all of our listeners. Is that when we see someone who is not in vibrational judgment, we might just say instead, um, their their presentation or their attachment to survival and
mm.
evolution are different than mine.
Yeah, and I was talking with one of my spiritual mentors after the situation came with our house where we're being asked to move
Uh-huh.
and all this upheaval. And she was actually the woman. She's 83 years old, and she had told me about Kripalu. That was what
Oh
landed
wow.
me at Kripalu. And so I had called her. She was the first person I called, and one of the things she told me, she was like, "Let your prayer be, heal me, bless her."
Mm-hmm.
Heal me, bless whoever is showing up in your life in their own wounding.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And, when I really began to pray that, and, when I can feel my own trauma response and, fight or flight, where it's like, yeah, but my mind's wanting to track all the details of like, but that's not right. You shouldn't treat someone like that. And like all these little things. If I just let the thoughts run, right, and go back to this prayer, it sort of like allows me to find this peace in my system. Like it's not my responsibility to figure any of it out, right? Even the healing part of like my own healing, I can
Yeah.
surrender it to the greater consciousness.
Yeah. It sounds like you really are able to settle into the present moment, which is really our place of power, isn't it? When we can sort of say and take good care of what we experience without labeling it or judging it, and in turn, not labeling or judging, but being able to just be present with what we're
Mm,
experiencing. Such a powerful practice that
yeah.
comes up a lot in my work, and in this idea of what does it mean to be in unity consciousness? What does it mean to be in this fifth dimensional or crystalline energy? People ask about that all the time, and to really explain it in a concrete way is we're moving from a place of hierarchical and categorical and ego driven structure, fearlessness.
Can you repeat that last part one more time? So we're moving from the masculine structure, the
Yep.
hierarchical structures, to
Mhm.
a place of.
From a place of polarity and masculine to a place of unity, love, interconnectedness, collaboration, and fearlessness.
Mm, yes. Yeah, it really takes so much courage, to um, keep our hearts open
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
to allow life to work through us and happen around us and not go into the contraction, the shutdown, or the story.
Yeah. And if we want to use a really recent example, we can look at like the fires in Australia, and we can
Mm,
see that the pain in that experience empathically from the other side of the world where I am is an opportunity for me to experience empathy and love and reaching or desire to reach my hand and my heart over there. And we can see that these moments, from a functional perspective, generate the light and the unity
mm,
in people. We see people coming together. And there's a quick example I'd like to share about this. I always think to myself when I'm driving on the highway, if ever I see an accident, may God act in me and may I be able to help. And I faint at the dentist, and I'm not someone who can handle blood. Yet I always think if ever that happens, the highway and I was far too ahead to pull over. I was going like 75 miles an hour, and the car hit, a metal plank. And at that moment, I saw three other cars stop, and I actually stopped ahead, and we all went kind of running towards this car. We're all running in the mud, and a black man, a Hispanic woman who didn't speak English, me, a couple college kids, the most powerful, diverse group of people from all walks of life, economic backgrounds, in the moment, responding with love to a complete stranger for which we had no clue who or what they were and what they believed in or where they were from. And I feel like those moments of
mm,
tragedy in a micro level or even in a macro level, like a fire that we're seeing in Australia, pull people together to celebrate what inherently we already are, which is
mhm.
which is unity consciousness, which is God incarnated. That's who we are. And I'll never forget that moment. And not because I got to do what I wanted to do, but I was so moved. People in that moment show up and how powerfully diverse we were, and really that there is no separation.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And so, yeah, do you want to talk a little bit about um, how we're being called to get there? Because, like I was sharing with you before our we began to record, I've noticed this in my own life, my own relationship. It's actually one of the reasons that I'm hosting these Rise Together conversations, because I truly believe we need each other. And what I learned from myself, even when I am showing up and collaborating, right? Like, I can see the places where maybe I am not in flow, or I can see the places where I am trying to lead, or um, just whatever. I get to notice myself, my reflections, and also I get to discover a new part of myself too, right? Like a playful part of me, a part of me that like it like truly delights my heart to be able to collaborate and kind of like play in the energy this way, where it's like, even though we're saying words, there's this energetic thing that's like a
Totally.
vortex that's happening, and we're just being like the mouths, the vessels that the energy is flowing through. And so yeah, it's like a playground to discover. And what I've recently noticed with my move, we moved into this house in November, and part of our process of getting here, me and James were in very individual, like, we were really wanting to come together. We were wanting to find, like, how do we manifest together? How do we find this flow to where we're on the same vibration and we're on the same um like manifest train of like letting the energy flow through us together
Mm.
versus individual? Because even like me and my business, that has been something that has been mine, and I had to do a lot of like letting go and sort of ego dying, around, well, if I let him create with me in my business, or if I let other people create with me in my business, um, what's my identity? Like, who
Mm.
am I? Right. And so we've really had to sort of navigate this individuality into um, moving into this house and getting kicked out. And now we're like, holy shit, there it is, like
All right.
there's the togetherness. And do you want to say anything about this?
Yeah, I mean, first I want to just mirror exactly what you just said in combination to what I described with this like car moment in relation to what I just mentioned with these fires is like through like the rawness of dissidence or conflict or pain or tragedy, through that
Mm-hmm.
chrysalis, we emerge and we
Mm.
are drawn and we are attracting and are attracted to the root elements that are similar in us. I mean, I can see that happening like through this conflict and through this challenge, all these layers get stripped away. And then you and James are like, aha, we are in sync, you know? I believe, and the Pleiadians who I channel believe that this energy of conflict towards unity consciousness does not need to be the vessel and tool we continue to use in fifth dimension.
Mm.
The vessel that we can continue to use is called the sacred feminine energy and the art of receiving.
Mm.
So I'd love to speak about that. Does that sound
Yes,
okay?
it
Yeah.
does. I get goosebumps.
So I have like these amazing, beautiful female clients that I work with, and a lot of them have what I call, or the Akasha calls, masculine energy. It's like we've had to show up on the planet with ambition and conviction and problem solving and decisiveness and action taking and clarity and a desire, almost obsession and attachment with clarity at all times. There's been this perhaps aversion to being with discomfort and being with the not knowing. And yet the 2020 cycle and the numerology of the 0 and 20 is a gestation incubation period
Mm.
where the sacred feminine and the womb of the sacred feminine to receive and to birth or to seed something new is available. And we can work with that in flow and in ease if we are embracing this idea that, as opposed to all the things I just mentioned in how we show up masculinely, we may consider instead to be in a place of discovery, of patience, of curiosity, of willingness to be uncomfortable,
Mm.
of experimentation, of courage and vulnerability, in trusting every single thing that comes our way and knowing that if it if it is here for me, then it's meant for me, and that I am a divine creator or artist of my own Akasha and my own design. And that is an attitude and a perspective shift from what I hear in the Akasha, that the more we talk about it, honestly, energy flows through those words and we can embrace that. And I've been like privy to the beautiful transformation in some of the folks that I've worked with and other folks in the world, and just seeing them, like the ease that they can experience in life when they just say yes to discomfort and yes to not knowing and yes to everything. Really, the sacred art of receiving is essentially what you're doing with the, wow, this house is no longer going to be my home, and this too, my favorite one, and this too, right? And this too, namo or aho to that, like, yes, God, you know. And I really think that fearlessness doesn't have a place in the sacred feminine, because fearlessness is about control, or fear is about control. Fearlessness is where we want to arrive. But if we have fear with this place of receiving, and we have fear with this place of trusting, we tend to live in a place of control and end up back in the masculine. Like, what's this about? How do I fix this? What's the solution here? We tend to want that almost immediately because it's so uncomfortable to just be present. I'm gonna say one more thing about fear, and then we can kind of take this in. But the Akasha says, like, fear is a tool, fear is a transit, fear is an opportunity to move, to breathe, to love your karma. Fear is not a place we live. And we may want to exchange the word fear for other very intense vibrational words like anger, a tool, a transit, an opportunity, an awakening, but not a place you live. And so when we have fear, if we think about fear in a very practical way, embracing it with sacred feminine, that would mean we kiss it, we integrate it, we love it, we listen to it, we rock it, and we engage in sacred presence. And that is the way fear becomes safe within you. Yeah.
Yeah, I really love that. And I just want to take a moment to breathe into it, because I feel a few different places
Yeah.
calling us to circle back to. Last night before James and I were going to bed, we've been reading this book by Marianne Williamson, and it's called The Gift of Change. How appropriate, right? Like, it was on the bookshelf of where we're living, and it was calling me. And so I pulled it off, and I'm like so grateful for this book, right? That we've been preparing ourselves and to handle it in a totally different way. And one of the things that I was like thinking last night was how, we are not our situations. We're not what's happening around us. And I think as a society, like, we've come to this place of identifying with like our job, our house, our like lifestyle,
Yes.
even our clothes, right? And it's like, the truth is, like, we're none of that. And even, how people are treating us, like in this situation, like, I have had fear and I've had lots of feelings. And at the same time, when I take the breaths and I'm like, okay, well, what is this showing me? What is this reflecting me? Like, how am I also her? Even if it's a past part of me, or maybe, what I really noticed for myself in this situation is all the ways that usually I am the one that holds it together. And, I usually go into the, like, let me be really strong. And what I've experienced is I've sort of been able to experience this more from like my inner child's perspective of the uncertainty, and like just feeling like when we moved when I was 5 years old, it's part of my core wound. So of course, I attract all these
Right.
moves, but, just noticing like how uncertain things were, and just like kind of being able to hold myself in that, in a different way has been really healing, and not to have to be the strong adult that's like super capable and gonna figure
Right.
it all out. Um, but let me just see where else I was going with this.
Mhm. Great example of the sacred feminine approach. Yeah.
Hmm. Maybe that's all that needed to be said. I feel like I lost my thread of
That's okay. You know, something popped into my head as you were talking about attachment,
Oh
actually.
yeah, the attachment and the identities. So what I was going to say is
Go.
it's not our situations, it's not what's happening to us, but who we are is the way that we show up in it.
Yes.
That is who we really are.
Yes.
So me being able to keep an open heart and cry the tender tears and feel the fear and love her anyway, even though I'm kind of like, yeah, and I really don't like that you did this.
Yeah.
And like it still really hurts and it's not okay with me, and at the
Yes.
same time, like I'm so beyond grateful
Yes.
because it's like all this clarity has come out of it, right? And I've opened, and that's who I am, and I can like see myself in this and receive myself too.
Yes. And what feels powerful to reflect as well is that the ability to see yourself and to feel yourself comes through your engagement from a
I
divine, sacred feminine approach, right? To be
mm,
able to receive and to be present with it. And the Akasha has said this a few times, and I've had some crazy fear-based moments myself. I wish I can say I'm not here, continue to have the joy and the pleasure and sometimes the agony of the richness of going through that and working through that. But they say about, you know, these moments that it's not really at all about what triggers you externally, and
mm-hmm.
almost exclusively about how you feel about it,
Mm,
right? So when I think about that, I think about the way we respond to the world, not just in our inner responding to all the events that are layered, you know, in our society. The Akasha acknowledges that the and this is where that like Rumi quote is really powerful. Like the wound is where the light enters you, right? The opportunity to shift, the
mm,
opportunity to heal is that location in you that has the wound that says, please listen to me. I'm so scared of being displaced and moving. I have this memory from 5 years old that this has happened. So the universe gets, or gifts you, should we say, the opportunity to expand that theme. The
mm,
Akasha talks about themes as expansive, ever expanding, and we become these medicine makers where you just become like more adept and more powerfully engaged and more rich in your wisdom and greater expanded in your courage through these themes. And so these ideas, I feel this way, this external situation is bad, or this external person, or this political paradigm is bad, is it a mistaken opportunity to feel the wound where the light wants to enter
mm,
you? And if we go there, like you've gone there, we transform that through an alchemy process.
mm,
And we can arrive with a greater expanded version of that theme as a medicine maker, as a teacher, healer, lover of that theme. And we can achieve a sense of neutrality around perspective. We can take a higher perspective and energetically charged by our experiences anymore. And I believe that these situations occur emotionally as opportunities.
yeah,
Yeah.
as an opportunity for healing.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
clearing and healing or
Clearing here.
transforming. Yeah.
Yes. And so, is there anything else you want to say about receiving? Because, I feel like this is such, the past few months, I've actually been doing a ton of work around receiving.
Okay.
And in a lot of ways, I'm really good at receiving. And at the same time, um, there's a lot of ways that I'm not good at receiving. And so, like, I think sometimes our partners are the best at like mirroring to us or knowing us, right? And so James would tell me like, you don't let me help you, or you don't, um like I was still kind of in that individuality of um needing to do it myself,
Mhm.
and just not even knowing a different way, right? Like I'm like, I have no idea. Like I don't even know what I need, or
Mhm.
like what I would want from you, or like how would I receive from you.
Right. What does that even
Like
mean?
I'm okay with receiving from the universe, right? And like if I have a healing session with someone, I can open to receive from them. But then there was these other situations where I'm like, I don't even know, like, how does that work?
Yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting, I guess, idea. And I can feel that in my own life as well, where there are avenues, people, situations we're more apt to receive from, and then others where we resist. I would say, the work of Tara Brach and radical self-acceptance comes to mind here, where she is all about like sacred presence, like being really present with yourself. And I think if we are going to practice the art of receiving, 2020 style, 5.0 version, we might want to spend a few days walking around. And my new phrase anytime someone compliments me used to be, by the way, this like awkward, okay, yeah, but you're doing great work too. Like, you're amazing, Candice. And I'd be like, and so are you. Right. And then I get some real work around receiving. And so my favorite thing to say now is, I receive that.
Mm,
May it return to you tenfold,
mm.
but I receive it first. Yeah. So I like that sort of mantra. I receive that. And I think a cool practice might be walking around the earth for a couple days, and everything that you experience and everyone you interact with, that you receive that. Like you trip over a sidewalk. I receive that,
I
right?
literally was just thinking of that. Like I remember the time at Cropella when you pulled the ferry card and you literally tripped and hit your foot.
Bloody foot. Yeah.
And then I don't know if it was like the day after we got the letter that we had to leave, or if it was actually before we got the letter, but I was doing a bunch of work. It might have been the day we got the letter, or it was before, but I was doing a bunch of work, like just trying to um not be in the like fear of what are we doing, where are we going, what's happening. And I ended up getting up from my computer and like my legs were numb and I didn't even realize that they were numb, and I like flat out fell
Oh my goodness.
in our living room, and it like, it like jolted me, like my whole system was like and I just laid there, and I was like, okay, let me just receive this
Mm.
activation.
I
Whatever
receive
is
this.
being jolted in my system, like just take a moment, breathe it in.
Yes. 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 And I think like we do love to label things, don't we, as humans? We do love to say like, that is good, that is bad, I received this shouldn't happen to me, it's your fault, right? Like, we just to remind everyone, that is very masculine, that is very third dimension. So like we can practice this, like the art of receiving, in a very practical way, and support our transition to this new place collectively, individually, with our families, by just giving yourself a good old I receive that to every little thing that happens to you. You're stuck in traffic, I receive that. You drop the eggs
Mm,
all over the floor, I receive that. Your child gives you the sweetest kiss, I receive that.
mm,
All of it, all of it. You eat the ripest peach, you think about how powerful Mother Earth is to birth that peach, and you take a bite and you feel the juiciness. I receive that.
mm.
Being inhabited and embodied in this moment, and practice. It's a perspective shift. I keep hearing that a lot in the Akasha. I think we also have an attachment to work. It has to be hard. And I have like Capricorn, moon, and rising. So, and we're in Capricorn, and I love to work hard. So I'm like trying to shed that myself. It doesn't have to be hard. They keep telling me all the time, like, Candice, it doesn't have to be this hard. Take a deep breath and receive it
Mhm.
with ease. Powerful lesson for me, powerful practice.
Yeah, and we can even just practice with receiving our breath, right?
Yes.
One of the energy programs that I was in, she had us practice like, breathing and noticing how you like take your breath and then
Mhm.
just seeing like, okay, can you actually receive a breath versus take a breath? And like,
Mm.
what's the difference? Like you could just meditate on that.
Yes. Love that.
So
Love
good.
that.
So one of the other things we had on our agenda to talk about is karma and
Mhm.
transforming karma, because I feel like this has been coming up a lot.
Mhm.
And it does feel like we're being called more and more into like a different way of navigating and um,
Yeah.
healing, you know?
Yeah, I feel like to start this conversation around karma, it feels important to acknowledge that karma is many things. It is not punishment,
Mm.
right? It's not retribution. It is opportunity to experience, to expand a theme within your soul resonance or your ancestry that serves a purpose for your spiritual attainment. You may have to rewind and play that part again, but karma is essentially an opportunity to grow that you choose prior to coming here. You kind of get up there and you're on some cushy couch, perhaps if that's what you've manifested, and you're just looking at all of the storylines in your Akasha of your past. Got some fun stuff to get in this department, the department of displacement and grounded shelter, perhaps in your case. Like, this would be so exciting in this life if I could create these timelines, timelines meaning opportunities to experience that you choose with your free will. Like, ooh, I'll create all these timelines to choose this situation so that I could expand this theme and grow bigger and grow stronger to get there. The Akasha describes resolution of karma as a complete unconditional all people and all patterns, including yourself.
Mm.
Unconditional love and acceptance of all people and all patterns, including yourself. And because there's this overlay of the sacred feminine and the fifth dimension around unity consciousness, there's an ease and a flow and a quickness to our practice of overcoming and transforming karma. We do not live in a time and space, and actually, my parents and my parents' parents, and maybe you can relate to this. We all can relate to this. I'm hearing my guide say everybody can relate to this. This idea of hustle, right?
Mm.
Hustle, like you got to hustle, you got to survive, you got to overcome. We've traditionally seen karma like that. That's how we see it. We got to overcome. It's the hardship of life, and anything could happen, and the other shoe's going to drop. And essentially, karma is this perspective of just embracing or receiving the opportunity that you created for yourself.
Mm.
And you can do that with the art of being present with how you feel and saying, what am I being called to expand here? What am I being called to receive here? Example, I don't know if I'm going to be, maybe he's not going to be happy with me sharing this example, but my partner, we're going to do it anyway, right? So my partner
We
has
can thank him for his willingness.
I think we can always ask for forgiveness and not permission, right? So he's had a long-term karma with, I'll share this example and then you can kind of breathe into it, whatever you think else we need to go into with this. But he has a long-term history of poverty and slavery in many lifetimes. So therefore he's got worthiness stuff.
Mhm.
He always is valued in his jobs, but he doesn't seem to be able to keep money in a sustainable way. He recently, last year, took a new job because they were offering a very high dollar amount for the job. And I open the Akasha and see what they say. And the Akasha is like, well, seems like you're attaching to an outcome without feeding the emotional need or what you're in this situation, which is a sense of worthiness and a sense of abundance within, and you're seeking an external quick fix through this job. And we don't
Mhm.
see that in resonance with you. And he's like, okay, I'll work on that. And then he took the job anyway. And then 2 months later, they fired him. It's never happened, ever. So he was like this huge bomb that went off in his life. And there was this powerful opportunity to say, like, wow, the attachment to a quick fix or the attachment to doing something to try to get it done, and not the time within to look at the underlying themes, um, create these, what the Akasha kind of calls them, like walls. Like you just bump into walls and they're like, how about now? You want to, go within now, and then you can choose with your free will to not do that and keep going. And then it's okay, how about now? And our lives, certain situations that we keep doing the same thing around get increasingly harder to do, and we continue to feel resistance from the universe. So this is a great example of like him needing to address the karma of money within himself and not seeking a quick fix or not pushing like something that wasn't in resonance. And that's how karma will work. It's very much like flow, right?
Yeah.
So when you're in flow, you're addressing all of your themes.
Something that's coming forward too as you're sharing that is, I think too, like we can choose situations and then we're like so hard on ourselves for getting ourselves into that situation. Like, even with this move, like James, he put the microgreens in the room and like he has been
Mm-hmm.
taking full responsibility for it and overly, right? To the point where I'm like, yes, you did that. And like,
Yeah.
it's still actually not okay, like, but what comes to mind, and I'll just give an example of myself too. This past year, I've gone through 2019, like so many layers of letting go and healing and dissolving and wanting, I have a Capricorn rising too, and like trying to heal and wanting to heal. And, then these things are happening in my life and I'm like, what did I do wrong? And like, what do I need to heal? And like, why is this happening? And,
Mm.
you know, we sort of like create these levels of like resistance or shame or why is this happening to me? And
Yes.
one thing, when I shifted my perspective of like, it's actually happening for me and I'm learning. And even though this is kind of like dark goddess-y and shadowy, like I'm still learning and I'm learning to soften my heart and open my heart. And so the metaphor that's coming up that I really wanted to share is like, we're so hard on ourselves. And if we think back to a child, and I know you post pictures of your little boy all the time,
Mm-hmm.
and like when they're learning to walk, when they fall, we celebrate. We're
Mm-hmm.
still celebrating their like couple steps when they fall, or like couple steps and they bump their head. And like most of the time they laugh, right?
Mm-hmm.
The little babies, they stumble, they fall, and then they're like still excited,
Yes.
and I think like sometimes we're so hard on ourselves that even like, your husband taking the step, doing the thing, and it's like even though it's not the thing for him,
Mm-hmm.
there are learning opportunities, and it could just be like, oh ha, I did this thing and I learned some things, like the
Yeah,
universe is giving me a
totally.
different reflection. But we like kind of take ourselves into the like the
Yes.
shame and the guilt and
Yes.
the heaviness.
Totally. And I thank you for mentioning that piece of it. And indeed, there was richness in that, experience for him, because he got to really validate his heart center. And, so when you are passionate and when you are feeling connected emotionally to what, is in alignment with you, you're always on the right path. And if there's an opportunity for you to have a reflection from the universe, or there's a misalignment in some way, you get to, you're not forced to or punished, you get to reorganize that. You get to assimilate that and integrate that insight and awareness. It's all happening for you, as you said. And now he's in a very beautiful place around his purpose and his career. And I'm sure because of that experience, because he needed to have that experience. Yeah.
And I want to like bring this to one more piece because this feels important as well. And I don't know if you're going to want to share anything about this, but so a piece that I've really worked in 2019 is when we're intuitive, even not intuitive, like as women, I think we have like this intuitive sense of um, what we feel, right? Like what we feel is the way. And then masculine, like the men tend to do things differently. And one of the things that I've really had to let go is sort of like this wounded feminine of like thinking that I know how James should do it or
Mm-hmm.
like what his healing process should look like.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was super, 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 super scary to
Mm.
let go of like the because a similar thing happened actually when we moved into this house. He went and he got a job and like I was like, "Oh my god." Like,
We're really airing all their dirty laundry on this call, aren't we?
well, actually, it's so fascinating because as we're coming together, when he hears me like share things, he's like, "Oh my god, I'm so happy that like I'm fueling your business and I'm part of your inspiration."
Great. Wonderful.
It was not always like that, but we're finding our unity
Yeah, there it is. Back to the
where
unity.
our creation process can like then he's like part of my business creation, right?
Yeah.
But um when he like my initial response was like really wanting to say something, however I didn't because I was at a place where I'm like learning to surrender that. And I think when I would say things in the past, like, I don't think you should do that. And then I'm like holding this,
Mm,
protection around myself because he's making this decision that I don't think he should be making or that
sure.
is going to create stress,
Sure.
which him getting the job, he's coming home exhausted and like frustrated and we don't have time to unpack because, whatever. Um, what would happen is then it's like creating more resistance between us, right? Because then he was feeling more shame and he was feeling more like lack of value.
Yes.
And the more I dissolve my own protection of my knowing how things should be, what I'm noticing is like I'm seeing the delight, and the more I'm learning to receive from the universe, I'm
Yes.
seeing the delight of how their energy works. And it's very different and it's kind of mysterious and it's activating, right? But it's also pretty freaking magical.
Yes. Totally. I mean, and I think we maybe didn't say, or I certainly didn't say, but want to say that there is beauty in the fifth dimensional masculine expression.
Hmm.
There is. And the sacred feminine energy is powerful because there has been an imbalance around that energy being brought to the surface, and the survivalist hustle energy that has been on this it's the astrological events has kind of forced us to show up with a push. But now we see that recline into the sacred feminine and a lot more. There is a dance. I hear the beauty in your interaction with him, and it sounds like you're thinking in a way that is in flow now. But I know as well from the Akasha that we choose our partners because they're dancing, alchemy, and file exchanging that we do with them. Like we give them one file, they give us another file. And I think it is that like beautiful dance of trusting another person's self determination in their path and knowing when to speak your truth with love if
Hmm.
if it's desired. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I tend to
And
be
it's
very bold, so
it's
I have to watch that.
well, I can be too, but I think this is like it's our willingness to still keep our hearts open, right? And like to speak our bold truth and like let go of the protection versus like when we go into the protection, then the energy is gonna do a thing, you know?
Right.
And
Totally.
yeah, to me it feels like this this unity consciousness that we're being called into. It's really inviting us into this um more so than even trusting each other. It's really trusting the divine flow. It's trusting
Definitely.
our our creation, because we're creating each other.
Yes. And like to kind of connect it all together is like, we don't have to look far, and to reiterate, it doesn't have to be hard to bring in the sacred feminine energy, to bring in or allow ourselves to surrender to unity consciousness. All we have to do is stay present
Mm.
with what is. And being present with what is electrifies your insight and your awareness to what is needing an integration.
What is needing?
And calling your love and integration. It's that the karma that's resonating will come up, and with your permission will transform and transmute into medicine. And so that sacred presence and being present with that idea of I receive that, I receive
Mm.
that, I receive that, is a beautiful practice to embrace that. And I think just knowing it's for me, maybe for others, it doesn't have to be hard. That we are in a process now where the shadow is transforming, and I can't say enough about how beautiful and how amazing and grateful I feel to be alive right now, to witness that in myself, to witness that in people and on our planet. And I hope that this talk inspires people to believe in that. You know,
Mm.
it feels sad, but yet I surrender and trust the process of that soul to see the projections of what a bad place it is. And I'm like, but no, it's beautiful.
It is.
We are awakening. So I hope that we inspire people to believe that today.
Yes. I'm so grateful for you, and I'm so thankful for you just taking the time to have this conversation with me and for us to be able to play together in this way.
Yeah, so beautiful. I could do this all day.
Me too. So do you want to tell them a little bit about your work, how they can find you if they want to stay connected?
Sure. So my practice is Rasa healing, and I integrate Buddhist psychology and channel the Akashic Record. Specifically now, more recently, channeling the Pleiadean Council on themes for you individually and themes that we could be showing up with on the planet to help transform us into a greater love vibration. And so I do a lot of individual sessions with folks virtually all over the country, some out of the country. I have 2 local offices in Florida, Palm City and Lake Worth, and I have a course, a really powerful course called the Pathwalker course, where folks can use channeled messages from the Akasha and practices and processes to help them work through a karmic imprint that they are wanting to integrate in a very sacred feminine kind of way. So it's a collective group. It's virtual, and it has a hybrid self-study and led and group facilitated. That's the healing, and I have a website, rasahealingservices.com, if you want to engage and talk about this with me. Yeah.
Beautiful. And I'll put the links to that information in the blog and in the YouTube links. So
Beautiful.
thank you again. I adore you.
Thank you. The feeling is mutual, and I'm just so grateful to do this work in the world. For me, it's like the way that I contribute to the love and the change that I wish to see and to experience. It's how I do that work, and it feeds me so fully. And so thank you for giving me space to talk about the work I love so much, and for being another beautiful star seed loving vibration on this planet. I see that in you, and I honor that in you.
Thank you, beauty. And for our listeners, if you want to share what this conversation is moving for you, bringing forward for you, please do that. We'd be happy to circle back and just, see you, acknowledge you, and connect with you as well. So sending you all so much love.
Okay.